Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing another week of dinners, and so here's what I had to eat for dinner every day this past week. Monday's dinner was this peanut rice noodle stir fry. I started by heating up 1 teaspoon of coconut oil in a wok. I then roughly sliced 1 white onion and added that into the pan along with 3 cloves of minced garlic, 1 chopped red chilli, and I grated in 1 thumb-sized piece of fresh ginger, and I fried everything off together for a couple of minutes. I next sliced up 1 red pepper, added that into the pan, and then I trimmed and sliced 200 grams of baby button mushrooms and added those in too. I fried everything off for a few minutes before then leaving it on a very low heat. And meanwhile I made a sauce using 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 3 tablespoons of Coconut Merchant's coconut savoury sauce, which is like a tamari but it's made with coconut so it's slightly sweeter, 2 tablespoons of Coconut Merchant's coconut nectar, which is like a sweet honey alternative, and then 3 tablespoons of smooth peanut butter. And I whisked those all together until smooth. Then I added it into the wok. I then filled a smaller pan with boiling water and added in a bunch of rice noodles, left them to boil for around 5 minutes, and then I drained them and submerged them in a bowl of cold water for 5 seconds, then drained them off again. I then used the spaghetti attachment on my Magimix Spiral Expert and I spiralised a courgette into noodles. I then added those into the pan along with the rice noodles. I turned everything through really carefully, and then I added in 2 chopped spring onions and a handful of crushed peanuts. Turned that through again and then seasoned with some salt and black pepper. I then dished that up between our plates. I topped them with some more crushed peanuts, some fresh chopped coriander, and I also squeezed over a wedge of lime and placed another on the plate. I've made something similar to this before. I don't think I shared the recipe, but I also added in some coconut cream, which does make it a lot creamier, but this is more of a drier noodle dish if you don't want too much of a sauce. I guess it's somewhere between like a stir-fry noodle salad and pad thai, and you can make this with whichever veggies you like. You can really change it up. Green beans, carrots, broccoli, pak choy would all work so nice in this too. Tuesday's dinner was this creamy spinach penne. I first heated 1 teaspoon of oil in a large pan. I then finely minced 1 white onion and added that in. Then minced 3 cloves of garlic and added those in too. I cooked everything off for a few minutes before then adding in a teaspoon of garlic granules, a teaspoon of onion granules, and a teaspoon of dried basil, and then stirred those through to coat the onions. Next I added in a carton of the Oatly Organic Creamy Oat Single Cream to the pan, which is basically a vegan single cream, along with half a cup of vegetable stock. I stirred that through and then I added in 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast and seasoned with salt and black pepper. Over in a small pan I added 2 large handfuls of fresh spinach and allowed that to wilt down. I then placed it in a sieve to drain off, refilled the pan with boiling water and added in a pinch of salt, then added in some whole wheat penne pasta. I left that to cook, and meanwhile I squeezed the juice of half a lemon into the cream sauce and then added in the drained wilted spinach and turned it through carefully. Once the pasta was al dente, I drained it off and then added it to the sauce, stirred it through really well. I then divided up the pasta between both of our plates and I finished it with some fresh chopped parsley over the top. This is a pretty quick and easy, simple pasta dish. I'm always trying to find different ways in which I can add spinach to meals, and here it works so well with the creamy sauce. The Oatly cream is great for this as it's not sweet, although it can be used for both sweet and savoury dishes, but the nutritional yeast adds a slight cheesy flavour and the lemon juice a little bit of zestiness. For Wednesday's dinner, we had these cauliflower steaks and a couscous salad. I first preheated my oven to 180 degrees Celsius, and then to a glass bowl, I added 4 tablespoons of olive oil, a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of coriander, a teaspoon of paprika, a quarter of a teaspoon of chili flakes and some salt and black pepper, and I mixed those all together well with a whisk. I next took a large cauliflower and cut 2 relatively chunky slices out of it, and then I placed those in a large baking dish and brushed each side with the marinade that I'd made. I then added half a can of rinsed drained chickpeas to the dish, and whatever marinade was left over I brushed over them and just spread them out evenly between the cauliflower. I then placed that in the oven to roast for around 40 minutes. Next, in a pan on a medium heat, I added 2 cups of vegetable stock, and once that was boiling, I added in 1 cup of giant couscous. I left that to cook for around 8 minutes until all of the liquid was absorbed. I then moved that to the side and left it to cool down. Meanwhile, I finely chopped up a quarter of a cucumber, half a red onion and a small bunch of fresh mint. I then added all of those to the pan once the couscous had cooled down slightly, squeezed in the juice of 1 lime and seasoned well with salt and black pepper, then mixed it all together in the saucepan just to save another mixing bowl. I then placed a good amount of hummus on the plates, then divided the couscous salad between each one. I then removed the roasted cauliflower and roasted chickpeas from the oven, and I placed the cauliflower on the bed of couscous. Then I added on the chickpeas. I then finished it with some cocoa dairy-free coconut yogurt, some sliced green olives and some more fresh mint leaves. I made a similar plate to this recently and I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to come up with something similar, although my head is exploding with ideas like these now. I love roasted cauliflower steaks, and with the hummus and the couscous salad, everything just works so nicely together. The yogurt gives it some creaminess, the olives some saltiness, and the mint some freshness and just another level of flavour. Thursday's dinner was this spaghetti mushroom bolognese. For this, I heated 1 teaspoon of oil on a medium heat in a large pan, and meanwhile I finely diced 1 white onion. I added the onion to the pan to fry it off for a couple of minutes until it was soft. Next, I minced 3 cloves of garlic, added that to the pan and cooked it off for a further 2 minutes, before then adding in a pinch of cayenne pepper, pinch of nutmeg, a teaspoon of paprika, a tablespoon of fresh thyme and a bay leaf. I then stirred it all together to coat the onions well, and then I added in 1 tablespoon of tomato paste and mixed it through. I left that to cook on a gentle heat whilst finally chopping up 350 grams of closed cup mushrooms. I then added the mushrooms to the pan, stirred them well and allowed those to cook down for around 10 to 15 minutes. Next, I added in 1 tin of chopped tomatoes, half a cup of vegetable stock, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, a tablespoon of vegan Worcester sauce, the one by Biona Organic is vegan, and seasoned well with salt and black pepper and gave that a really good stir. I then brought it up to a boil and left it to simmer uncovered for around 30 minutes. Just before it was ready, I then filled a smaller pan with some boiling water and added in a pinch of salt. I then added in some whole wheat spaghetti and cooked that down until it was al dente. Once it was done, I drained the spaghetti off before then adding it into the mushroom bolognese. I turned it through well and then I served that up between the plates. I had reserved some of the mushroom bolognese to add on the top of the spaghetti, and then I just finished it with some fresh chopped parsley. I've shared this recipe on my blog but not in a video before, and it's honestly one of my favourite recipes. This time I just added in some cayenne pepper and switched the dried herbs for some fresh thyme, and the water for vegetable stock to change things up a bit. It's so good, and that's coming from someone who used to despise anything with mushrooms in it. The texture is perfect for a bolognese mince, and I'll either serve it up on a bed of plain spaghetti like in my blog post, or I'll turn it through the spaghetti like I did here. Finally, Friday's dinner was a chickpea curry, kind of my own take on a chana masala. For this, I heated 1 tablespoon of oil in a large pan. I then finely minced 1 white onion and added that in to fry off. Whilst that was cooking, I made a simple paste in the mini bowl of my Magimix food processor, and I added in 4 cloves of peeled garlic, 1 thumb-sized piece of fresh ginger, and 2 small red chillies which I de-seeded. And I blended those together until they formed a chunky paste. I then added that into the pan and again fried it off for a good couple of minutes. I then added in a pinch of cayenne pepper, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of ground coriander, a teaspoon of Coconut Merchant's organic turmeric powder, and 2 teaspoons of garam masala. I stirred the spices through really well, and then I added in a tablespoon of tomato paste and stirred that through too. Next, I added in 1 tin of chopped tomatoes, and then using the back of the spoon, I mashed them up slightly. Next, I added in 1 200 milliliter can of Coco Fina's coconut milk. This size is perfect if you want to add in a little bit of creaminess, but not with a full can of coconut milk. I then added in 1 rinsed, drained can of chickpeas, and then also the other half of the chickpeas that were left over from Wednesday's dinner. I also added in a bunch of chopped fresh coriander, seasoned it well with salt and black pepper, and then stirred that through really well. I then brought that up to a boil before leaving it on a gentle simmer for around 30 minutes. Meanwhile, I filled a smaller pan with boiling water. Then I placed the leftover cauliflower, also from Wednesday, in a sieve over it and placed the lid loosely on top. Sometimes I can't always be bothered to crack out my steamer, so this works quite well, and after about 10 minutes the cauliflower was nicely steamed, so I transferred that over to my Magimix food processor. I then pulsed it so it broke up and almost looks somewhere between rice and couscous, but be careful not to blend it up too much so that it forms a puree. I then plated up the cauli rice between our dishes. Lastly, I squeezed the juice of half a lemon into the chickpea curry, stirred it once more, and then I plated that up on top of the cauliflower rice. I then just topped it with some cocoa dairy-free coconut yogurt and also some more fresh coriander. Chana masalas are probably my favourite kind of curry, or even just a side dish, and it's what I always order. They're so good, and I say this is my take on a chana masala because it tastes very much like one, although I'm not sure if they use coconut milk usually, but I like to add in a little just to give it some creaminess. I also like to add in the lemon juice or lime juice as well at the end. I find it really brings out the flavour of all the spices and just lifts the whole dish. And that's it for another week of dinners. I really hope you enjoyed this video and it can maybe give you some inspiration. As always, all of the recipes are written up in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!